Hello, welcome back to Fallout. So by now everybody should know that the new legendary crafting system is going to release on September the 3rd as part of the Milepost 0 update. Personally, I was expecting it to take a few updates, but there you go, September the 3rd it is. Unfortunately, I don't think it's an improvement to the existing system. There are definitely advantages to it, but on the whole, it's not an improvement. And one aspect I particularly dislike about it is that newer players are disadvantaged by it. It took me a while to get this all on paper, and I kept writing and rewriting it, to the point where it's almost too late to make a difference. But in my opinion, the topic is important because this doesn't just affect Fallout 76. Like I predicted before it came out, many systems in Starfield drew from Fallout 76. A lot more than I expected in my preview actually, and that actually worked against Starfield. That's a topic for another day, but it's pretty obvious that Fallout 76 is something of a test lab for Bethesda's ideas. So while we're seeing this in Fallout 76 first, you can be pretty sure that something similar will make it into Fallout 5 and most likely Elder Scrolls 6. What I'm hoping is that the thoughts I'm putting down might somehow influence later versions to be better by default. The major change is that instead of relying on RNGs to grant you god rolls, in other words, completely randomly, you can now tweak the individual properties of an existing legendary to get what you want. In theory, it should allow people to get exactly the legendary weapon or armor they want. But the key word is in theory. Like always, the devil is in the details, and unfortunately, the details are not pretty. I'll start by summarizing what the changes are, illustrate that with an example of crafting a fixer in the two systems, then follow that up with analysis of how the changes will affect the playing experience. I'll also try and mention when I'm talking about things that I've not been able to test directly, so you know that it's unconfirmed. So what's changing? The key change is that the game will let you scrap legendary gear, just like you can with normal weapons. That gives you a chance to get a legendary property from the weapon, either by getting a loose mod you can then apply to another legendary item, or learning the recipe to craft a module. It seems you can get multiple modules dropping from the same item, so that suggests each star on the legendary item has a separate chance to drop. From now on, I call them star modules or star mods to differentiate them from the legendary modules we have now. It's intended that there will be a 1% chance to learn the plan to craft a star module. Once you've learned the plan, you'll need rare items like bobbleheads to craft different star modules. So plus strength star module requires a strength bobblehead to craft. Someone's created a wiki page with a list of requirements, and they include chems, serums, and bobbleheads. Bobbleheads is a particularly bad requirement, but Giuseppe, the stamp vendor, will also start selling mystery bobblehead boxes for 20 stamps each. That's probably not a coincidence. There's also a separate chance to get a loose module when you scrap a legendary. One of the devs confirmed that it was meant to be a 2.5% drop rate. In the PTS that was increased, but that's for testing purposes, so I'd assume that 1% and 2.5% are the targets in the full release. But in any case, the takeaway should be that the drop rates to learn plans and get loose mods are very small. Scrapping legendaries also gives you scrip at a rate of 1, 2 or 4 scrip for a 1, 2 or 3 star legendary. Not much, but better than nothing. You can still use legendary exchanges to get scrip, and you can still spend scrip to get legendary modules just like you can right now. The daily scrip limit is still 500 scrip per day, but it's been confirmed that the total scrip limit will be raised. In the PTS that was 11,000. Legendary cores are also not used anymore and will be converted to scrip on a one-to-one basis when the update drops. So this increase to the total scrip limit is likely because they don't want people to lose scrip when the transition happens. There's no official confirmation, but I wouldn't be surprised if the increase to the limit is temporary, so watch out for that. On the other hand, buying legendary modules from the Rusty Peak will now cost double. It's gone up from 50 scrip per module to 100 scrip per module. To make up for that, you'll also get modules from events. So the legendary cores that you got from activities will now be modules. The good news, at least for Fallout First users, is that modules now count as junk and they only weigh 0.15. So that means you can now put them into the scrap box. But keep in mind that script and modules aren't as important as they are now, at least compared to scrapping. Okay, now on to crafting. You can still use legendary modules to make a normal item into a legendary, but the cost has been increased to 5, 10 and 15 modules for a 1, 2 or 3 star legendary. Before it used to be 3 or 4 modules to get a 3 star, so that's significantly more expensive. To give you an idea of how much more expensive, in the current system it costs 200 script to make a normal weapon into a 3 star legendary. But in the new system, that will cost 1500 script, in other words, 7.5 times more than now. On this note, armor like Secret Cerberus, Solar or Thorn armor that needs legendary modules to craft no longer need them, but the crafter's normal gear. You have to spend modules just like any other item to make them legendary. And there's no discounts for upgrades. Making a 2 star legendary into a 3 star still costs the same as it does to make a 0 star normal item into a 3 star legendary. In other words, 15 modules. The bright side is that you'll keep whatever effect you already have. The new stars will be random though. But by far the biggest change to the system is that rerolling legendaries has been removed altogether. Instead, you can apply star modules to replace existing properties on an item. So in theory, you can turn a legendary with 2 great stars into the exact 3 star you want. You need the star module you want to apply, but you also need to spend script. The first star module you apply will cost 10 script, the second will cost 25 script, and the third will cost 60 script, and so on. The cost will increase each time you apply a module to the same item. The maximum is 1000 script for the 20th and later modules. That's only based on how many times you modify an item though, not on what tier you modify. You can only apply star modules from the same tier of legendary properties, so the item has to have a star in the same tier already. You can't apply a star module from the 3rd tier to an item that's not a 3 star legendary. Those are the facts of the matter, but that is a lot of information to take in. So let's look at an example. Let's say you wanted to make a god roll fixer. For anybody who doesn't know, god roll means having the exact set of legendary properties you want. First you craft a fixer, then you turn it into a 3 star legendary. Currently costs you 5 cores and 4 modules to do that. But you probably didn't get the effects you wanted. At the moment you can re-roll at the cost of 4 modules per roll. The chances to get a god roll on 3 stars is still 0.036%. So this method is not likely to give you what you want. After the change, that will be 15 modules to make a fixer into a 3 star legendary, and re-rolling is not available. You could repeatedly create fixers and spend 15 modules each time to make them legendary, but the chances are still just as bad, so it's unlikely you'll get something useful. What the devs want you to do is tweak each star individually. You'll need to obtain a star module for each star and then spend some script to replace the existing star. That's 50 script for all 3. But the issue is obtaining those star modules, and that's where the grind is shifted to. First you have to have a loose star module. You can get one from scrapping another legendary and hitting the 2.5% chance. That's 1 in 40. For weapons you have 25 legendary effects in the first tier, 10 in the second, and 11 in the third. So to get exactly the star mods you want, on average you'll roughly have to scrap 40 times 25, or 1000 legendaries to get the first tier legendary you want, 400 for the second, and 440 for the third tier. That adds up to 1840 legendaries to get the exact 3 star mods you want to make a fixer into a god roll. That's not counting situations where a single legendary has multiple effects you want, so the actual numbers are a bit lower. A ballpark estimate around 1500 legendaries is probably good. Learning the plans to craft star mods has a 1% chance, or 1 in 100. That means you need to scrap 2,500 legendaries for a specific first tier legendary, 1,000 for the second, and 1,100 for the third tier. That's roughly on average 4,600 legendaries that you have to scrap to learn the 3 plans you want. Again, not counting multiple stars on the same item. So as a ballpark, let's say 4,000 legendaries. The upside is that once you learn the plans, you can craft your own star mods and sell them. The problem is that you need some rare materials. Most of them are obtainable by crafting or scavenging, even if it's a bit difficult, like with mutation serums. But bobbleheads are problematic because they're chance-based. If you try and get them by exploring the world, the locations where they spawn is random, and the type of bobblehead you get is random. And that's assuming that someone else hasn't got there before you. But not surprisingly, they're going to allow you to buy mystery bobbleheads from Giuseppe for 20 stamps each. A fully completed expedition gives you 20 the first time and 15 on subsequent tries on the same day. So that's roughly 1 mystery box per expedition. But you're still getting a random bobblehead, so that's a 1 in 20 chance to get the bobblehead you want. So to get exactly the bobblehead you want, on average you'd have to do 20 plus expeditions. You also need 15 legendary modules to create a first tier star mod, and 60 for a third tier star mod. I can't find the screenshot now, but I believe that the second tier will cost 30 modules to craft. But compared to the difficulty of learning the plans, this is not that bad. Let me start with the conclusions, then I'll explain why I'm saying that. With the new system, it will be much easier to get a god roll, but getting to the point where you can craft a god roll will be much more difficult. That's because learning plans for the star mods you want is not any easier than getting a god roll. The chance to randomly get the perfect 3 legendary properties at the moment is 0.036% for a weapon and 0.0175% for armor. Compared to that, learning the plan for a first star on a weapon is 0.04%, then around 0.1% for the other 2 tiers. That's not exactly much better than the chance to get a god roll, especially when you remember that we haven't counted the chances to get the right bobblehead. But the positive is that once you hit the jackpot and learn the plan, you can start mass producing star modules. So theoretically, getting that full unyielding AP refresh and weapon weight reduction armor set that everybody seems to want would be much easier. But only once you learn the plans for those 3 properties. Getting a loose star module is a bit easier, but you're still gambling against similar odds. The difference is that the gambling has been shifted from re-rolling for to scrapping now. For someone like me, who's been stashing good 2-star rolls, the new system is very good. I just have to learn a couple of plans to make a bunch of god rolls. But for people who don't have good 2-star legendary stashed away, it's going to be much more difficult to get to that point. You'll have to rely on random drops from events and expeditions, and considering that the weapon type is random, getting 2 good stars on the item you want will be just as difficult as getting a god roll now. Or you'll have to tweak all 3 stars after crafting a new legendary. Either way, it's much more difficult to get to 2 great stars on the item you want. If the new legendary crafting system was an addition to the current system, I would have said that it was an amazing update. In other words, you could craft new legendaries and re-roll existing ones for cheap, but you add on to that the ability to tweak individual stars to get those god rolls. That would have been a massive improvement. But as it is, you're still gambling against the same odds, just in different ways. One way to address these odds would be to remove the legendary properties that nobody cares about. Hands up anybody who uses a nocturnal weapon when you've got better ones available. Anybody? Yeah, I thought so. One of the problems right now with legendaries is that there's some that are clearly superior to others. Anti-armor is good, bloody if you're at low health, Overeater's armor if you play at full health, unyielding at low health. The goal should be to balance things out so that all available legendary properties are equally useful. Maybe some can be specialized for different situations, but they should all provide similar levels of value. Why does Aristocrats give you a 50% bonus, but Gourmands caps at 25%? It's just as easy to reach the maximum bonus for both, so there's no valid reason for that to be the case. This should be an opportunity to rework these legendary properties. I'm also particularly unhappy about the bobbleheads being required for many star modules, because like I said before, getting one by playing is straight up gambling. I'm pretty sure that this and the stamp vendor selling bobbleheads was deliberately done to try and push people to do expeditions. But that's not the right way to encourage people to do expeditions. The focus should be on making them attractive enough that people want to play them, instead of trying to force them by the crafting system. I don't like having to say this, but this smells like someone in middle management wanted to get higher participation rates for expeditions, rather than focusing on what's fun for players. Obviously we'll never know who it is, but the obvious suspect is the EA monetization guy. Not only that, the bobblehead requirement will simply benefit people who dupe them, or third-party sites that sell items for cash. I suspect that the same might happen with star mods, but we'll see. People who actually tried to get them by playing are going to be disadvantaged. Is that really something we want to encourage? A potential saving grace is that star modules can be traded. A side effect of the new system will be that trading will be encouraged, which is a good thing. But this also brings up issues with the current trading system. Early on, it'll be difficult to find any, but the more popular modules should be on sale once players start to learn how to craft them. Aside from the cost of modules, there's real questions about how available those modules will be, given the low drop rates and the player limit per server. It's going to be very difficult to even land on the same server as a player vendor that has the module you want. And even if you are on the same server, how do you find them? The only way at the moment is to travel between all the player camps and manually checking the vendors, then hop to another server and do the same again. Forcing players to jump across camps and servers in the hope of finding what you want is just wasting everybody's time, not to mention server resources. Some sort of search functionality across servers should be made available, and hopefully a way to trade without having to physically visit a player's camp. An alternative is to rely on offline methods like trading forums. But when it comes to player-to-player direct trades, there's no way to safely exchange items. You have to rely on trusted third parties to hold the item, because it's too easy to simply steal from the other player. I expect that most of the early trading in star modules will be players trading them directly with each other, just because they'll be so scarce. So this has every chance of casting the new star module system in a bad light, if it's not addressed in some way. Player trading needs to be safe and reliable, and it needs to be easier to find what you want from player vendors. This is a general problem, not just in relation to legendary crafting. After you get the star module you want, then you need to spend script to attach it to a legendary item. There is the question of why it costs more for each star module you attach. I can understand the cost increasing based on how many star modules you've attached, but making the cost increase even if you're replacing a previous star module makes no sense. It's obviously meant to discourage tinkering, but I would say that we should be going in the other direction. Take a look at the perk system. You can have as many perks as you like, and you can remove or add them whenever you want. It's obvious that the goal of the perk system was to encourage tinkering and playing around with different builds. And generally the game as a whole follows the same principles. It's meant to be flexible and unrestrictive. But now the new legendary system goes in the complete opposite direction. You're actively discouraged from tinkering with your favorite weapon and playing around with different combinations of legendary properties. A system where you can remove manually added legendary modules and attach them at will is far more conducive towards quote-unquote fun and more in line with the generally casual nature of the game. Something like Fallout 4's mod system comes to mind, where you can freely remove modules from weapons you pick up to then put on your favorite weapon. Instead, the new legendary system will encourage players to roll for an entirely new weapon, if they want to test different combinations of mods. That's becoming grindy for the sake of grind. And to be fair, people will engage in a system, even one that's grindy, if it's fun. But making it grindy for the sake of trying to extend the people's playing hours through that grind eventually leads players away from the game. You can't forget about the fun. So hopefully you now understand why I have the conclusions that I have about the new system. To be fair, the overall structure of the change has a chance to make it easier to get god rolls, because you're not relying entirely on gambling to get god rolls anymore. That's great in principle and I applaud that. The problem is that the odds as they are intended are just as bad as they are now, and my biggest concern is that it's worse for new players. That's not great for encouraging them to stick around and growing the player base.